What's going on, fellas? This is episode 1 of the Tony D podcast. I am Tony D, and we're going to get into a little talk about the Knicks. So, the Knicks did absolutely nothing in free agency, and I'm very, very happy. The New York Post says the Knicks flopped. I think they did exactly what they needed to do. Starting off with the draft, love the pick of Obi Toppin at 8. I think he's exactly what we needed. This is who we wanted. Some energy from an offensive position, somebody who looks like they can actually put the ball in the basket, while a lot of the other players on the team seem like they don't have that necessarily drive to want to put the ball in the basket all the time. You see it in bits from RJ, but outside of RJ, you got guys who just, want to pass, maybe get a lob into the basket from Mitch. These aren't scorers. They're players who can get 15 at most, and that's okay. They're role players. They're players who can be core pieces, but they're not scorers like Obi. The only downside I see of Obi is possibly his age and obviously his defense. It's college basketball. There's not a lot of defense that gets played, so I can understand, but at the same time, you want to show that you have some of that. And it doesn't look like he's terrible at defense. It just looks like he doesn't give a crap at all. So, I think Tibbs is going to whip him into shape. And as the defensive guy that Tibbs is, he's going to do a good job and making sure he does what he's got to do, knowing his rotations and all. Outside of that, his age. There's pros and cons to his age. I mean, he's 22. He's actually older than Frank Ntilikina. So it's a good and bad thing. I mean, he'll be closer to his prime towards the end of this contract. We don't got to watch him develop like we do Frank. Frank, I love him like as much as I love the player on this team, but he's 18 coming in this league. He's shown development, a little bit, but it's taken him this long. It's taken him 3 years to get to this point. So I think Obi might be ready because he's developed his game up until this point. Sophomore coming out of college. So there's pros and cons. Cons being more that he's obviously older, and he'll be more older when this contract's expiring. So, but he'll be in his prime by then. Outside of Obi, though, I really like the Emmanuel Quickly draft. He looks like he's got some promise. I don't know if he's necessarily a point guard to me. He's 6'3", which means you pretty much got to run him at the 1. But, I mean, you never know. Some of these guys can grow a little bit. Frank grew like 3-4 inches. If Quickly can grow and get maybe a little bigger, I'd really love to have him at the 2. He's a 3-and-D player. Doesn't show much passing, but, those 3-and-D guys, you got to love them in this league. I think he's got a lot of room to grow. I'd love to see that defensive backcourt of him and Frank. If you could possibly find a way to run him at the 2 and have Frank at the 1, I like that, but you can always flip it and have Quickly run the 1 and Frank at the 2. I just don't love Quickly at the 1 because his passing is not that great. I haven't seen much of his ball handling, but I know he's just not a passer. So getting into free agency, outside of the draft, love what they did in the draft. Free agency, loved it again. I don't think this is typical Knicks anymore. We're not giving $15 million contracts to Taj Gibson, not signing 30 power forwards. Didn't need to give $25 million to a Julius Randle type player. We are building for the future. We have young kids. We got to let them play. We got to let them develop on their own. And we just got to let them get out there. Signing Gordon Hayward for a $30 million contract like the Hornets did, what's that going to do for anyone? It takes touches away from Frank, Kevin Knox, Obi, and Mitch. Somebody's got to touch the ball. Same thing with Melo. A lot of Knicks fans wanted Melo coming back. I think you could have been the worst thing for this team. I think Melo on a team of a bunch of, let's call it scrubs, not that they're scrubs, it's not great. It's not what you want because, Melo's going to go into his iso ball, his post. He's going to get a usage rate of like 30% on this team, and that's not what you need from a 38-year-old when you have kids that are 22 that you want to develop. I think we're moving away from stereotypical Knicks. I mean, this new ownership, not the new ownership, the new president, the new GM, having a new coach, we're moving in a different direction. We don't need to sign these guys to feel it. We don't have to go swimming in the kiddie pool and sign these guys and overpay just to just to um just to seem like we're competitive and think we can stretch into an 8 seed. Let's develop the kids we got. Every team's got a core, and they start with these young players. Um, Talking about this roster, my dream five right now, it's it's kind of unrealistic, but it's what I would love to see. I know we're getting Nerlens Noel. We signed Nerlens Noel, and Elfrid Payton's coming back. I'm not a big Elfrid Payton guy. I don't think he's the worst player, but I just want to develop these kids on the team because I don't think Elfrid Payton is the answer for the Knicks. So my dream five with this team right now is running Ntilikina at the 1, going to quickly at the 2. He's the only asterisk I have on this, mostly because, late first round pick, how much you getting out of this kid, Like, how good can he really be? But I would love to see him, throw him in that position. Does he earn starter on day one? Probably not. But Tibbs might take an interest in this kid because he plays good defense. At the 3, you gotta you at the 2. Actually, I'm probably saying you're definitely running RJ at the 2 to start. So Frank at the 1, RJ at the 2. RJ's a lock for starting, 100%. Going into the 3, I'm saying that we're running Obi at the 3 probably. What scares me about that though is his defense. I think he can get torched by some 3 players. He's too slow and too stiff on the defensive side where I think somebody's going to blow past him. Some of these smaller threes or these quicker threes, they're going to get right past him. That's why I prefer him running more at the 4. Not that I don't think he's strong enough for the 4. He can get there. But the 3, I think they're putting the ball in the basket, the opposing team, every time if he's running the 3. So you got Obi at the 3, I'm saying. At the 4, I feel like up until anything happens with Julius Randle trading or whatever, you got to run Julius Randle at the 4. He had a down year. I know a lot of Knicks fans don't like him, but I mean, he showed promise in the past, and you got to give somebody props when they're willing to come to the Knicks. Julius Randle's not a scrub. He's not a Joakim Noah. He's not he's not one of these players that is just a bona fide scrub. He's got game. He was a fringe all-star in New Orleans, and he's 20, 24, 25 years old. He's got room to grow. Just because he had a bum year last year doesn't prove anything. Who was he playing with? Who's the next best scorer on that team? You got freaking not that Mitch isn't great, but you really deferring to Mitch, who really can just catch lobs at this point and doesn't really have a strong post game. But Julius Randle's got to throw up everything on this offense. You put your best defender on Julius Randle, you don't got to worry about anyone else. You worry about an Elfrid Payton deep mid range too, and the digression of Kevin Knox. Not that he can't be any better, but is he another scoring threat compared to Julius Randle? That's why I think Julius Randle can have a better year this year with more options around him. So I think he's the 4 for the moment. Not that I don't want to trade Julius Randle because I wouldn't mind getting that contract off the books, but I would like to see him have a bounce back year, and I think he can definitely do it. I don't think he can get worse than he did last year. And then the 5, Mitch is definitely a lock at the 5. You gotta love Mitch, great defensive anchor. Would love to see his fouls and going down a little bit, and love to see him get stronger, but he seems like he's working on his offensive game. Haven't seen much of him out of the post, but I am seeing him trying to stretch the 4 and become a modern type center, and he looks good. Don't know how much I don't know how many shots he's going to be throwing up under Tibbs' offense, but can't complain about the guy trying to be better. And I don't think he gets worse defensively or rebounding, so he only gets better. So that's your starting 5. Obviously, off the bench, you're going to have DSJ, Elfrid Payton, Nerlens Noel, and Kevin Knox, and Emmanuel Quickley. So, Nerlens Noel, good backup center, can't really complain about that. Elfrid Payton, don't love it, but I understand. You got to have somebody to back up these young point guards like Frank and Quickley. You also got Alec Burks, so there's that. Alec Burks, is gonna get some minutes there. One of those three modern 3 out, 4 out guys. So, you know, um, then you got, like I said, quickly love him. Would love to see him get a lot of minutes on this team. And then I'm hoping for a revival of Knox. So, I don't think he's a bad player. I mean, he's a little inefficient, sure. But, same thing with the Julius Randle thing. If you're the best scorer on the floor for the Knicks, you're not going to be an efficient player. So, I think we're going in a good direction. Love to see these young kids develop. Hope Knox gets some good rotation minutes off the bench. Could possibly be a starter if they trade Julius and Obi goes to the 4. But yeah, love where the Knicks are going.